Hi, and welcome to this podcast, the IELTS, OET, and UK MLA PLAB 2 Made Easy podcast for medical professionals. My name is Kalsoom, and I specialize in training doctors and nurses to get the score they need in IELTS and OET, and also training doctors on how to improve their clinical communication skills for UK MLA PLAB 2. The aim of this podcast is to arm you with authentic advice from someone who has been teaching these tests, especially IELTS and OET, for over 10 years. I share the core fundamentals of these tests, the essential information, strategies, and advice on what you should be doing and what you need to avoid doing. Anything and everything to make sure you keep moving forward in your preparation and getting you closer to achieving your scores and getting your dream job abroad. I understand and appreciate that your time is busy as medical professionals. You have very limited time, so I do try to keep the episodes short. And one of the advantages of podcasts is that you can listen on the go. So before I get into the main topic of this episode, there are a few things that I'd like to bring to your attention that you can find in the show notes. So you'll find lots of links in the show notes. And firstly, you'll find the link to my free training for OET called OET Success Training, which is a series of 5 videos that take you through all aspects of the test. And I share how you should be preparing and how you can improve your skills. And this training alone has helped so many doctors and nurses get the score they need. If you would like to train with me for OET, then you'll find the link to my flagship OET Success membership group and also a little video which explains how the training works. You'll also find a link to my free PLAB 2 Core Clinical Communication Skills webinar. This is a webinar I delivered earlier last year, where I go through the key clinical communication concepts that need to be present in any consultation. It's an invaluable resource to help you not just for your PLAB 2, but beyond the test and in your careers. If you would like to join my clinical communication mastery for UKMLA PLAB 2, then just drop me an email. This is a group training program of only 8 doctors. So I only take 8 doctors at a time, only 8 doctors in one group. This is to make sure that everybody in the group gets enough practice and feedback. So if you're interested in joining that, then just drop me an email, which leads me to the last thing. You can find my email address and how you can contact me and connect with me on LinkedIn. Hi, and welcome to this episode. So today's episode is for OET writing, and in particular, those of you who are struggling with OET writing and really focusing on what you should be doing in the first 5-minute reading time. So in the beginning of the writing test, you will have the case notes in front of you, and before you can begin writing, you are given 5 minutes to read through the case notes. So you need to make very quick decisions in those first 5 minutes. You need to decide on what case notes you are going to include, what case notes you're not going to include, what's relevant and what's not, and much, much more. So I'm going to share with you the 6 key things you need to focus on in those first 5 minutes reading time to help you keep focused and control the overwhelm when you first see those case notes. Before we get into the first 6, the 6 things that you need to remember, one thing that I will mention is really you need to remember what the purpose of those first 5 minutes is. So obviously OET is a writing task, but it's not about how much you can write in the time. It's not a race. It's a clinical thinking task. You're not being tested on how much you can write in the time. You're being assessed on how well you can identify purpose, the audience, the person that you're writing to, how well you are able to collect relevant information, relevant case information, and then organize it into a clear professional letter, and how well you can concisely pass on relevant information in a logical format to the reader. So it's really, really important that you keep that in mind, that this is the purpose of the writing task. And those first 5 minutes are crucial in deciding all of those things. So identifying the purpose, the audience, the relevant case notes, how to organize your letter, how to write in a clear, professional, concise manner, to convey the information that's needed. So really, those first 5 minutes are very, very important. They are for diagnosing the case. So it's very much like a real clinical situation. So if you keep that in your mind, have that type of mindset when it comes to doing your writing, that will help you. Don't just think of it as an exam, a writing exam. Think of it, put yourself in that clinical situation and diagnose the case. So that's the first thing I want you to keep into your mind. So let's get on to those 6 things, those 6 key things that you need to keep in your mind while you are reading. So here's a step-by-step structure I teach my students inside the OET Success Program. And it really is a game changer, beginning with that mindset shift that I've just spoken about. So the first thing you need to do is read the task. So you're not going to go through the case notes. You are going to read the task at the end. And sometimes at the beginning of the case notes, right at the top, you are given, you are told where you are. The background, perhaps you are in a clinic or you are in a hospital or you are visiting someone's home, whatever it is, you're given some kind of information at the beginning. So read that, skip the case notes and go to the end and read the task and read it twice. I would read that task twice very quickly. And really what the task is telling you is who you are, where you are, who you're writing to, what your role is, and what the recipient needs to know. And why you're writing that letter. And you need to ask yourself, why am I writing this letter? What is the main concern or the request? And what kind of information will the recipient expect? What kind of information will they expect? These are the questions you need to keep in your mind when you now go back into those case notes and read whatever notes are there. Now, what that does automatically then is when you go back to the case notes, you will automatically sift out the relevant case notes and disregard the irrelevant case notes, because you have a clear idea of what the reader is looking for, because you know why you're writing the letter, what the main medical issue is, and what the person is expecting from your letter, what is relevant and what is not. So for example, if it says write a referral letter to a physiotherapist requesting assessment and ongoing care, you now know your purpose is not to explain the diagnosis. Yeah, it's just to justify why the patient needs a physio support. So that changes what needs to be added into the letter. So that's the first thing. You have to be very, very clear on why you are writing the letter. What is the purpose of the letter? Who are you writing to? What information do they need? What will they expect from your letter? What do they need to know in order to carry out whatever it is that you're requesting them to do? So that's the first thing. The second thing is then obviously you go back into the case notes and you go through, and you don't have to read everything, but locate the sections. So usually you'll see the medical history, the presenting complaint, the treatment observations, the discharge plan, the management plan. So at this stage, don't get stuck on the details. Just locate and highlight the likely relevant sections. and what is going to be, just mark in your head exactly what will need to go into your letter and what will not. So, for example, really quickly, just a quick example, if to um, you're writing to the patient's GP, yeah, perhaps you are in the hospital, in the emergency department, the patients come in, you now have to write a letter to the GP explaining why their patient was in hospital. So you're not going to go into any kind of medical history or anything else like that. You're going to tell them, because obviously the GP will already know that. You're going to tell them all the information that they need to know from the visit, why that patient came in, what the treatment was given, what the diagnosis was, and what needs to happen next. So that changes then. So you could disregard the medical history or the family history. All of that will not be relevant. So you need to understand quickly what sections are just not relevant. And make sure there's nothing in those sections that might be relevant. So there may be one case note that might be relevant. So you just need to be really, really careful. Step 3, identify the relevant timeline. So this should take you about a minute. What are the key dates? Identify the key dates. Is there a follow-up? Is there a new issue? Is there an emergency? Has the condition changed over time? So this helps you to build a clinical narrative. What happened? When did it happen? And what's happening now? Has it been, if you're a GP and there has been a number of visits by the patient, and it's something that's, the situation is something that has happened month after month. There's been constant visits by the patient, and now you need to refer your patient to a specialist. So you need to build up that timeline, that story. So it can't just be a letter of random list of facts. There needs to be a logical timeline. So how, think of that timeline, those key dates, and how are you going to present that in your letter? The fourth step is decide what to include and what to ignore. So you can start underlining the key dates and the key case notes that match the task purpose. And only include the information that will help the recipient take action. So ask yourself, will the recipient need to know this? Will it affect their treatment, their assessment, or their care? Is this information just background, or does it change the management plan? So, for example, if you're writing to a dietitian, they don't need the patient's complete surgical history unless it affects their diet plan. So this is where many candidates lose marks. They copy irrelevant details that confuse the reader, and they just add in irrelevant information. So you have to be, this is why it's so important to be clear right at the beginning about who you're writing to, why you're writing to them, and what they need to know. Then, number 5, plan your paragraphs. With everything now filtered, spend about 30 seconds before, I would say up to 2 minutes, planning and organizing your ideas and planning your writing. So before you've even started writing your letter, you need to spend time planning out your letter. You cannot start writing your letter immediately when you do not have a clear plan in your mind of what your letter is going to look like, paragraph by paragraph. So you need to spend up to about 2 minutes planning out your letter. Plan out the structure. What's going in the introductory paragraph? Obviously, that has to include the purpose. The next paragraph, presenting issue, the key history, the current situation, management so far. Another paragraph, what does the recipient need to do? What is your request? There could be another paragraph on family history. You need to decide what paragraphs are suitable. Do not follow model answers and have memorized structures, because that's not going to work, because every case note is different and every letter will be different. So you need to decide on what the relevant paragraphs will be and how you're going to organize those paragraphs. And then within those paragraphs, how are you going to structure that paragraph? What's going to be, what case notes are going to go in which order in that paragraph? So you need to spend up to 2 minutes planning out your letter before you start writing. And once you are clear, you've done all your thinking and your organizing, then you can start writing your letter. If you're doing the thinking and the organizing and the writing all at the same time, you are going to get confused, you're going to get lost, you're going to start crossing things out, um, and you're going to get confused, you're going to get stressed, and you're going to waste a lot of time. So separate out the tasks. Give yourself 2 minutes, plan, think, organize, and then focus on the writing. And then when you're writing, then you can focus on your language, your vocabulary, your punctuation, your conciseness, and all of the other things. So, there's a lot to do there. And if you're doing it all in one go, you're just going to get in a huge muddle. So separate those two things out, and then you can start writing your letter. Lastly, the sixth point, and probably the most important really, is to trust your clinical instincts. So just to remind you that you are already a healthcare professional. You already know how to decide what information matters. You do this already day in, day out. So the OET writing test is not trying to trick you or ask you to do something that you've never done before. It's trying to see if you can apply clinical reasoning in your writing. And you're doing it already in your day-to-day job. So it's important not to make the task more difficult than it is. Yeah, you just need to do exactly the same thing, but just make sure that you're following the steps that I've just outlined and trust your own abilities. So, slow down, analyze the task, trust your judgment, and plan before you write. And that is how you will do well in your OET writing. If you have any questions, please do email me. As I've already mentioned, there's already how you can contact me in the show notes, and I look forward to seeing you again in the next episode. I really hope you found this episode helpful. I always enjoy getting your feedback, so do drop me an email and let me know your thoughts. Also, if there is any aspect of OET, IELTS, or PLAB 2 that you find challenging, then let me know and I'll do an episode on it. In the meantime, thank you for listening, and make sure you share this podcast with your colleagues and on social media so more people can benefit. And some parting advice, especially to those who have failed to get the scores that they've needed in the past and are retaking any of these tests. It's not enough to just listen to what you need to do to improve your skills and scores. You must implement the advice and practice. You have to push yourself outside of your comfort zone, because that's where real progress is made. Remember, nothing changes if nothing changes. Take care and keep working hard.